Hello, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to the show, Unbossed. I am so glad that you are here. And I'm so glad that Yasmin is here too. Yasmin Kanu is here to help us break down today's news. Yasmin, speaking of breakdown, anything going on with the breakdown? You're a contributor.
Yeah, lots going on over at the breakdown. My upcoming video, we're talking about billionaires again. They, again, don't think that people want to work, but what does that really mean for the workers? That's what we're talking about later over there. And Happy New Year to you and to everybody watching, by the way.
Thank you so much for that, and back at you. So first up, we'll ask about the importance of independent media. Do we really have independent media anymore? And I'm not just talking about the TYT network and other independent journalists, but I'm really talking about mainstream media. And David Sirota from The Lever, they really weigh in on that very succinctly. This is an important discussion that all of us should be having, no matter what side of the political ideological spectrum we may lean. It is important to have an independent media. So we're gonna go deeper into that. And then later in the show, Kevin, McCarthy. He might not have the support he needs to become Speaker of the House. So we'll give you what we have as the latest information. And finally, a new neoliberal emerges just in time for the new year. So what is and where is the first estate? We're living in a moment where mainstream media in particular seems like all they care about is appeasing their partisan audiences instead of giving the facts. Now, yes, absolutely, on media, on TV media, as well as print media, you have some folks who give you just the straight news without commentary, and then you have people who give a little news and they give a little commentary. We should be able to distinguish between the two. Some people give you straight up facts, no commentary. Some people are commentators, period. They lay out the news and they give you some commentary. But what is happening right now in this particular moment, especially especially with the strong influence that social media has, is that we have news networks, particularly mainstream media. And that is not to say that everybody that is on mainstream media is unwilling to tell the truth. Yours truly, I am blessed to be both here at TYT on our independent network, and I am called from time to time to lend my freedom-fighting progressive voice to mainstream media. But on whole, the mainstream media networks, they kind of cave to or contour themselves to their audiences versus giving the facts, whether they're just straight up fact news anchors or whether they're commentators that give some of the facts. They definitely carve and cave their stories based on their audiences. And we're gonna give plenty of examples here. So the partisan ghost in the machine, let's put up this headline. David Sirota did an extraordinary job of laying out what is a challenge for us right now, and I mean all of us, the very democracy or the representative democracy, really a republic, but here we are. The partisan ghost in the media machine. Media outlets no longer consider government malfeasance newsworthy if reporting on it might offend audiences' partisan loyalties. And the story that he uses as the anchor example to walk us through this point is the blow up, the explosion, the what in the hell happened to Southwest Airlines. Yeah, and it's a very good example because the Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg failed in his duty and his job to regulate and put the hammer down on this industry, even though he was warned way ahead of Mother Nature doing what Mother Nature does. It is of no surprise that we had a winter storm. Is anybody surprised that in December or in January or February and maybe even March that we might have a winter storm? Is anybody surprised by that? I didn't think that you were. And we have more technology than any other generation before us. I think the weather people told us that the storm was coming. But what brewed with Southwest was bigger than Mother Nature. It was also a storm of the folks running that airline caring more about their stakeholders than they cared about the people who had to use the unfriendly skies on those particular days. So we're gonna get into this. Let's use what David Sirota laid out. So he was reflective, a very reflective piece about the state of the media. He used the recent airline debacle to highlight the tribalism, or what I call the partisan death spiral happening within the fourth estate. And the fourth estate is, in fact, the media. The media is supposed to be a nonpartisan arbiter of the facts. Instead, too many media outlets worship at the feet of the two political parties, and they don't want to offend either party. So if you're Fox News, you don't want to offend Republicans, and if you are MSNBC, for example, you don't want to offend Democrats. And so all of this worshiping at the feet of who's a Democrat and who's a Republican causes these news outlets, for the most part, and that's not every single commentator on there, but I'm talking about on the whole, it causes them to not tell the truth when that truth may offend the side that they are supposed to be on. Now, they are not supposed to be on the side of who's Republican, who's Democrat. They ought to be on the side of what is right and what is wrong. But they do all that they can to protect the partisan viewers from the negative facts about their chosen side. So let's take a look at this tweet that David Sirota had up. Right-wing media touted revelations about at Secretary Pete's failure. Liberal media erased any mention of the document showing Buttigieg's negligence. This is a democracy crisis, a media that only reports facts if it flatters partisan audiences. And that is very true. If anybody kind of frolicked through Twitter over the last few days, you will see folks weighing in on either side or the other, depending on what side that they're on, taking up for their chosen team. When in this case, this particular example, the people that we should be concerned about are the people who were stranded and their families and the impact that what this Southwest debacle caused, not taking up for the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. He gonna be okay. So let's look at more of what Sirota had to say in his article. But as the great airline meltdown of 2022 illustrated last week, today's media now routinely does the altering by promoting or suppressing facts based on which party and which infanticized audience they serve. That is a problem, not just for air travelers, but also for our entire democracy. You better go ahead and speak that truth, David Sirota, or write that truth. He goes on to review, as up to 1 million travelers were stranded by Southwest Airlines over the holiday season, uncovered documents showing that Democratic state officials and congressional lawmakers had repeatedly begged Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to toughen rules to deter airlines from mistreating their customers. There it is. That is the main premise of this, for not to allow the airlines to mistreat their customers. But all of a sudden, some people were reporting on this, others were not. All right, you know which side reported and which side didn't. And the side that did report on this were using this mainly for political gain and not because they actually cared. David Sirota is actually calling for action. Take a look at this.
Do you think this issue will be sorted in time for the holidays?
I think it's going to get better by the holidays.
I wasn't anticipating a nightmare, but it became a nightmare. It did.
Passengers forced to sleep at airports, luggage scattered from city to city.
Again, your bags will not be here.
4 months before Southwest's mass cancellations, 38 state attorneys general from both political parties sent a joint letter to congressional leaders explicitly calling out Buttigieg's transportation department for failing to respond and provide appropriate recourse for frustrated airline flyers. Buttigieg's agency has continued to do almost nothing to prevent all of this from happening again.
How can travelers have faith in the airline? And to be frank, have faith in your department as a watchdog if these problems keep happening?
Has done and did almost nothing. And this letter from this bipartisan group of attorney generals happened way before the storm. This actually happened over the summer. Yasmin?
Yeah, I like Sirota's use of the word infantilize because I think it's so telling in the way the media treats its audience sometimes. There isn't always a place for nuance, discussion, or debate in the way news is presented these days, and we need that because things aren't always black or white, and politics shouldn't be treated as a team sport. Some anchors and journalists, to their credit, do attempt to break the mold here a bit wherever they can, but at the end of the day, journalism is a job, and these journalists are employees serving a corporation first and serving the public second, which is wrong. What you end up with is really predictable hot takes, and maybe I'm guilty of that too. And you get news stories that are more sensational than factual. I think part of the reason that there's so much confusion and division amongst the American people is because of this. People are confused about basic ideas and events and what actually happened. And a lot of these things are issues that they end up voting on at the ballot. And a big part of the reason why everyone is so confused is that it's actually very difficult now to get an unbiased report of what's actually going on with a situation. It's almost a skill to be able to discern facts within a news story these days. And then it's another skill entirely to analyze those facts and come to your own conclusions. And depending on what news station you're watching, you're walking away with an entirely different set of facts from the next guy. Ultimately, this doesn't serve the public. And, I don't want to be too hyperbolic when I say this, but what is the point anymore of watching the news if most of the time it's effectively just serving as a facilitator of government propaganda one way or the other?
There it is. And the fact that so many Americans now, because people have picked literally a side on this, and that they are unwilling to listen to the so-called other side, it does not allow for robust dialogue, nor does it allow for critical thinking. And that really is what is missing in this whole situation. In Sirota's call for action, let's put this up. He said, tell Congress and Buttigieg to stop airline abuse. And this is important. There's still something that needs to be done. Southwest needs to be held accountable. The whole industry needs to have a check on it so that something like this can never, ever happen again. And so if you want to get involved, this is a way that you can get involved and really push for Congress to take action, not just against Southwest, but this is for the people and every other airline too. We need to do that. So this what really is the role? I mean, Yasmin and I are really, we're using the airline debacle as an example to put out a larger point. What really is the role of media? So Sirota goes on, and yet despite these revelations, our reporting only prompted discussion, analysis, and commentary among conservative media and Republican leaders, from the New York Post to Fox News to Newsmax to House Republicans to Donald Trump Jr. And these opportunists, he's very clear about this, seized on our reporting not because they genuinely support accountability in journalism. I mean, that would be good if they did, but that wasn't the point. Or stronger consumer protection legislation. They do not. They vote against that. They fight against that. But because they want to weaponize news against Democrats. So again, all of this stuff is being used for one political party's gain or another. And who loses out? Just like the millions of people who got stranded, it's the people. One more point by Sirota. By contrast, even as reporting ultimately went viral across the internet, the documents and facts holding Buttigieg accountable went almost completely unmentioned by major legacy and left of center media outlets. Indeed, as thousands of travelers were stranded, MSNBC and CNN offered wall-to-wall coverage of the situation, but with little context and almost no mention of Buttigieg and his refusal to regulate. See, yours truly wasn't invited on the shows at that time, because you know I would have put that all the way out there. There it is. And the American people are not only losing their patience with mainstream media, they're also losing trust. Let's put up this graph from Gallup that shows that Americans' trust in mass media from 1972 to 2022 is actually going down. In general, the question, how much trust and confidence do you have in mass media, such as newspapers, TV, and radio, when it comes to reporting the news fully, accurately, and fairly? A great deal, a fair amount, not very much, or not at all. And we see steadily people do not trust the media to report. The key word is fairly. And that is a problem, because if we think about the fourth estate as one of the superpowers in our nation, and dare I say the world, the fact that that superpower should be charged with covering the facts and putting it out to the people, and they're not doing it in a way that people trust, is absolutely a problem. And that is the reason why independent media networks like TYT, I am about to toot our own horn, toot. Why media outlets like TYT networks are so important. Because of you, our viewers, you give us the opportunity, our subscribers, you give us the opportunity to be truly unbought and unbossed. That's why we are important. And other independent media that are out there, they are important because they don't have to kowtow to the owner-donor class within the media world. They don't have to do that. And so media should respect, the journalism should respect the truth, no matter who is for or who it is against. And this type of power and influence must be used to hold the other levels of power accountable. And unfortunately, in this particular moment, that is not happening. Thank you so much, Sirota at The Lever, and everybody else there for really laying this out and giving us something to think about. All of us should care about this. No matter what side you are on the political spectrum, you want the media to be a fair arbiter of what the truth is, period. And not hold that from us, we the people, just because it doesn't play well with the team that they have decided to support. We're gonna keep pushing that, and shout out to all the independent media outlets that we have. We are fortunate that we do have many. Speaker of the House. Oh, I say Speaker of the House. Who is going to be the Speaker of the House? Well, McCarthy is having a very hard time. Watch this.
I came into this position and we had less than 200 members. We are now sitting in the majority. We put forth to the American public a commitment to America. There's times we're going to have to argue with our own members if they're looking at for only positions for themselves, not for the country. For the last 2 months, we worked together as a whole conference to develop rules that empower all members. but we're not empowering certain members over others. Last night I was presented the only way to have 218 votes if I provided certain members with certain positions, certain gavels, to take over the church committee, to have certain budgets. And they even came to the position where one, Matt Gaetz, said, I don't care if we go to plurality and we elect Hakeem Jeffries and it hurts the new frontline members not to get reelected.
Oh, playing hardball with McCarthy. He is in trouble, and this is very embarrassing. So the House held a roll call vote to elect a new speaker. We all know that McCarthy wanted to be it. McCarthy needed 218 votes, but the number required for the majority could drop. Reminder, the House can't kick off the new Congress. They can't swear new members in until a speaker is elected. And as of this morning, let's put this up. Breaking, Kevin McCarthy just officially lost his bid to be Speaker of the House after the first round of votes, with at least 5 Republicans who have voted against him so far. It's been 100 years, 100 years since something like this has happened. Republicans in absolute chaos and disarray. Now, various other names were floated during the roll call vote. Let's put up those names. Other nominees for Speaker of the House: Republican Rep. Andy Biggs, Republican Rep. Jim Jordan from my great state. Lord have mercy, forgive us for that. Please, America, forgive us for that. Those names were put forward. And Republicans are crumbling from the inside out as there is a divide between the right-wing extremists, the MAGA, and the old school Republicans. I mean, they duking it out, and we're seeing it right here in real time. This headline: a far-right gang of House members will hold power over their caucus with a megaphone. The GOP lawmakers who have spent years becoming a far-right influencers are poised to hold a concerning amount of control over the new Congress. But at least they're using their power. Even though I don't agree with them, they know how to use power. But I digress. Listen to what Matt Gaetz had to say.
Us who will not be voting for Kevin McCarthy today take no joy in this discomfort that this moment has brought. But if you want to drain the swamp, you cannot put the biggest alligator in charge of the exercise.
Oh, Representative Gaetz, don't let him fool you. He taking great joy over this, and he flexing those muscles. And meanwhile, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Rep. Greene, had this to say.
My friends in the Freedom Caucus, Matt Gaetz and others, will not take the win when they have it. They're proving to the country that they don't care about doing the right thing for America. They're proving to the country that they're just destructionists. And that's not what we need to do as a party. That's why Republicans fail. And I'm really tired of it. So
even though I don't agree with those two at all, they are flexing their muscles. They're using the power that they have to bring to bear what they want to see happen. Even though what they want to see happen is wrong, they're not afraid to go up against the power structure within their own party. Am I hinting at something that some Democrats need to do more often? But meanwhile, on the Democratic side, House Democrats nominated caucus chair Hakeem Jeffries of New York to succeed Nancy Pelosi as leader of the Democratic minority in the chamber. A historic move that will make him the first black lawmaker to lead a party in Congress. You know what? That is indeed, making history is a beautiful thing. The substance of that is also important, if I must say so myself, as a freedom-fighting progressive. Yasmin.
Yeah, and this has been fun to watch over the past few days. McCarthy has been chasing votes all week. He's been making concessions to members of Congress in exchange for their votes, none of which ultimately made a difference because he still lost his vote. Now, some of those concessions are important. They included, making it easier for him to be recalled as a speaker once he's instated. And another was forcing spending cuts to offset budget increases in various sectors of government, something that could have detrimental impacts on actual people's lives. He said that members of Congress were making personal requests of him in exchange for their votes, and he seems done, like he seems over it. If this isn't the most egregious example of government inefficiency and ineffectiveness, I don't know what is. The Republicans have been going on for years about what they would do if they had more power in government. They've been going on about these things even when they effectively controlled all 3 branches of government. They finally regained control of the House, and finally their own greed and duplicity is gutting them. It's hard to feel sorry for them, and it's easy to indulge in like the schadenfreude of this whole thing, but we need a functioning government. And as you mentioned, we can't go forward until they get this figured out. these are the people that we're entrusting our nation to, and it's a little ridiculous.
It is very ridiculous. America, now this at some point we got to stop being complicit in our own demise. Now this is uncharted territory right here. So we're gonna keep an eye on this. Hopefully they'll get this thing settled today, but we'll see. One of the main points here is that those caucus members are using their power. And it certainly would be nice to have the progressive Democratic caucus, which is many more of them, flex their muscles from time to time. So we'll see. I don't think the Republicans really have too much to worry about. They don't, because the Democrats are in disarray as well. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome to Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word.
Okay.
This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull.
Drink it, swallow it,
no.
spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Yeah, still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening?
No, that's just wrong. Every way.
And we'll see you next time.
Hey, Dave. As you can probably see, Skype froze.
Yes.
Frozen crash.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Welcome back to the show. We're so glad you're here. This is my favorite part. Before I get to that, let me tell you some things that are going on. We have a spin the wheel. When you sign up for an annual membership at TYT, you'll get a spin the wheel to win limited, and this is limited time, but you'll get some perks from TYT. One of those prizes is an Unbossed t-shirt. Now, come on. Who doesn't want to ring in the new year walking around with an Unbossed t-shirt? You got to do that. Come on, spin that wheel, go to TYT. So check it out and sign up at tyt.com/spin or scan the QR code to get started. When we say members make TYT possible, we really do mean that. So we need you. So go ahead and go to tyt.com/spin. All right, now to your comments, viewer comments, TYT members. Speed Racer, hey, Speed Racer, baby, Happy New Year. Speed Racer says, Happy New Year 2023, Senator Turner and Yasmin with an exclamation point. And we're sending a hearty Happy New Year back to you, Speed Racer. And on Twitch, Marley, hi Marley. Yay, it's Nina time. I'm ready for the wisdom and hello to the amazing Yasmin, fellow Houstonian.
Hey,
yeah,
that's nice. It's nice to see it. Say hi to a Houstonian.
Yeah, it is, always. Go ahead. And on YouTube, Super Chat, Yorgen, Happy New Year, Power Nina, and all truth searchers. Happy New Year back to you, Yorgen, as well. And as you know, we appreciate each and every one of you. Without you, we could not do what we do. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. WTF neoliberal, we have Colorado, come get your governor. Yeah, really, come get him. Because he's making me say WTF neoliberal.
We will now kneel.
Miss Cinema, no.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
This is indeed a case of Governor C, Governor Do. Colorado Governor Jared Polis is planning to send more migrants to New York and other major cities. This is Governor Jared Polis. You see his picture? Yeah, that's him. He is a Democratic governor of Colorado, as we told you here on Unbossed, baby. We don't care who the truth is for or against. We're gonna put it out there. We don't play favorites in that way. This is about the truth for us. So, but this is the governor. This is what he wants to do. This current term ends on January the 10th, and Colorado Governor Jared Polis plans to send migrants to major cities, including New York. Mayor Eric Adams said Tuesday, warning that the nation's largest city is already struggling to deal with an influx of people sent from Texas and other Republican-led states. And this is coming from a report from Political. Thank you, Joe, for that. Polis states his intentions are good, and that state has been helping asylum seekers reach their final destination. That is what the governor's saying. This seems just like more folks just throwing folks overboard just because they can. And to see governors across this country use migrants, to use immigrants, to use people as political bouncing balls shouldn't make any of us happy. None of us should take this as good. It is not good to play these kinds of games. And this is a Band-Aid solution to an open wound. We have immigration reform needs in the United States of America, and we have had several presidents, recent presidencies, and several recent Congresses not do their job. Yasmin, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I feel bad for my friends who actually left the Texas government and moved to Colorado, because despite a Democratic governor, it appears to be more of the same over there. Many people in Texas are appalled by the actions of our Texas government, which is entirely GOP run, and they're incredibly difficult to vote out. So I don't want to hear anymore about why don't you just vote him out? It's very hard to do so. So when our governor, Greg Abbott, pulls political stunts with our tax dollars, it's very difficult to watch. You feel helpless. What's worse is that after the first time this happened, it kept happening. No one could stop it. And then other states started doing it, specifically Florida. And now that vitriol is spreading to other states like Colorado, which is democratically run. Look, if illegal immigration is an actual issue, which it is, it needs to be dealt with. This, however, is not the way to deal with anything. Turning people who are primarily asylum seekers into political pawns is never the way. It's mean, it's inhumane. The government agencies and agents who are responsible for dealing with the immigration backlog and for dealing with the factors contributing to the influx of people at the border need to step up and do their jobs, go to the source, fix the problem. But in so doing, you don't have to demonize entire groups of already marginalized and struggling people. It's mean.
That's it, Yasmin. You definitely hit the nail on the head. That's how I feel about this situation too. Let's deal with it. I think some people on the left pretend like we don't have a problem in this country. We do have a problem in this country. And every time someone brings up a legitimate concern, I'm not talking about a racist lace concern. I mean people who have legitimate concerns about immigration reform in the United States of America and what we are going to do about it. It is fair for people to have legitimate concerns. What is not right is, Jasmine, what you just laid out. To hurt, to demonize already marginalized populations and to continue to pit one group of people against the other. Federal government, do your damn job. You have failed, and you are contributing to all of this confusion, the mayhem, and just anxiety that people are feeling over this because you are not doing your job. Now, what Governor Polis is doing, does it sound familiar? What Governor Jared Polis is doing, excuse me, does it sound familiar? It should. Texas GOP Governor Greg Abbott, over the spring and summer, bused thousands of migrants from the border to blue strongholds like New York, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, while Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis flew nearly 50, mostly Venezuelan migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. Again, playing games with people's lives. Now, federal government on another side, since you're not doing your job on immigration reform, you need to hold these governors responsible. The DOJ should open up an investigation and put the hammer on these governors so that they can stop this foolishness. But it's kind of hard to do that when you are not dealing with immigration reform, you being the federal government, both the Congress and this administration, and both the Congresses before this administration and the administration before this administration and the administration before that and the administration before that. Basically, what Sister Turner is saying is that it has been an epic fail over several Congresses and several administrations. Now, Abbott, he claimed it was to bring attention to the border situation, but he did it in one of the cruelest ways possible. Yeah, it is. We do have a problem. I'll be the first one to say we got a challenge. We need to fix it. But the way you fix it is not by playing games with these people and their lives, using these people as a political prop and further fueling hate and animus, because that's what you're doing. The issue, thousands of migrants have attempted to cross into the United States border in recent weeks. They've been doing it for years. There are push and pull factors. And maybe one day we'll do an explainer on this because it's important to understand the geopolitics behind all of this, which is big, that when people are feeling desperate, they are gonna seek out other places to come. What are the politics in play with this happening in the United States and other parts of the world? What role does the United States play and other major industrialized nations in these push and pull factors? It's not just this one thing, it is indeed a domino. And so the solution, fix the broken immigration system. The US has failed when it comes to this, and we continue to fail time and time again. We must do something. We need more judges too at the border. But let's put up this headline. A raking record, 1.6 million people are now mired in US immigration court backlog. Those backlogs come from not having enough judges. When I'm talking about judges, these are the people who are there to be able to decide whether or not the people that are trying to cross into the United States have a legitimate legal reason to do so. Like their lives are in danger, they're running from a corrupt and dangerous regime, that kind of thing. Or is it that people got to get in line? Which is it? We don't know because we don't have enough people doing their job. Let's put this up. DACA deal for dreamers fizzling as Texas Republicans prioritize border security. So again, even with our DACA sisters and brothers and family and friends, we are failing. So United States government, do your job and stop playing games with this. Please do that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this issue other than epic fail on the part of the federal government.
Oh yeah, I mean, Abbott is cruel. You know, he's negligent and he has no conscience. It's disgusting, and I promise that we are trying to vote him out. You know, he's pandering to the remainder of the Trump Republicans in order to garner their support, and he's playing games with people's lives in order to do so. And it's like what you said, the federal government is allowing this to happen, and they really shouldn't be. I don't know why this keeps happening. After the first time it happened, it shouldn't have happened again. After DeSantis picked it up, it shouldn't have happened again. After what happened on Christmas Eve at Vice President Kamala Harris's house, it should not have happened again. This is all the result of several levels of failure at the federal level and at the state level, and you're absolutely right.
No, I totally agree with you. And the people who are bearing the brunt of this failure are the immigrants, the migrants themselves, and then the people who live in these places too. You know, when the governor of New York say, hey, we are being, we can't handle all of this, I don't necessarily agree with his politics all the time, but I understand where he is coming from there. And so the federal government has the biggest stick, it has the biggest voice, and it is its responsibility to try to help solve this conundrum and not leave anybody, any state or any city in this type of position. But the federal government, it is not doing its job on this account, and it really is sad. They are creating more and more problems. So get on your job, federal government. Oh, I sigh deeply over this next story, the cost of football. Football is, one of those sports. I mean, there's some violence in the game. And we unfortunately saw that in an alarming way on Monday night with the life-threatening situation involving Buffalo Bills player Damar Hamlin. This headline right here. Damar Hamlin of Buffalo Bills in critical condition after collapsing during the NFL game. For anybody that was watching that game, you saw that happen in real time, and I'm sure hearts skipped beats. It was a very chilling moment there. About 9 minutes into the game on Monday night, for those of you who were not watching, Hamlin tackled Bengals receiver T. Higgins after a 13-yard catch. Higgins rammed into Hamlin at full speed, hitting him in the head and chest area. Hamlin quickly stood up, took 2 steps, and collapsed backwards, and his body went limp. This reporting is coming from the New York Times. Further, medical personnel administered CPR and attended to him for 10 minutes as players from both teams were visibly upset, some shedding tears on the sidelines, while others circled together and knelt in prayer. One medical professional appeared to administer an IV. Hamlin was later placed on a stretcher and transported to the hospital. I mean, this was serious business. Now, Hamlin's friend and marketing rep, Jordan Rooney, put out this tweet last night. Let's take a look at this tweet. Update on Damar. His vitals are back to normal, and they have put him to sleep to put a breathing tube down his throat. They are currently running tests. We will provide updates as we have them. And so even as we are reporting this, things may have changed, and we're hoping that things are changing for the better. Hamlin is still being treated at the hospital, and we must continue to keep his family lifted up in our prayers. For those of us who do pray or send positive thoughts, there is a vibe there. We want to keep this family lifted. The game was eventually suspended indefinitely, but not until an hour later. More on that soon. Before we go further, I want you to watch this powerful message from former NFL player Ryan Clark.
In this game and in our job as well, we use the cliches, I'm ready to die for this. I'm willing to give my life for this. It's time to go to war. And I think sometimes we use those things so much, we forget that part of living this dream is putting your life at risk. And tonight, we got to see a side of football that is extremely ugly. And this isn't about a football player, right? This is about a human. This is about a brother. This is about a son. This is about a friend. And so the next time I think that we get upset at our favorite fantasy player, or we're upset that the guy on our team doesn't make the play, and we're saying he's worthless, and we're saying you get to make all this money, we should remember that these men are putting their lives on the line to live their dream.
Thank you, Ryan, for that. And look, for me, I watch it, but I'm with him. None of this is more important than a life. It is a game of risk, and people can die. And folks are entertained by this. So we need to check ourselves as Americans. Now, the NFL, it is a gross shame that the league does not feel the same way about these players. It is a gross shame that the so-called owners of these teams, in partnership with the league, continue to put money over the lives of their players' safety. They put money over the lives and the safety of these players time and time again. This was just a chilling reminder of what is already wrapped and weaved into the DNA of the NFL, unfortunately. And the NFL took an hour to decide to call the game off. The league was rightfully criticized for taking so long. Let's put up Bill Sparrow's tweet. It is never too late to do the right thing. but taking an hour to do so was embarrassing, but on point for Roger Goodell and the NFL. And you know what? Bill is absolutely right on that. On top of that, there were reports that the NFL gave players and coaches, I'm trying not to need my fire extinguisher right now. I don't know if Cool Like a Bomb is watching, but I'm trying to be cool, not like a bomb right now. They gave them 5 minutes to prep to return to the field. Did you hear what I just said? But thankfully, they refused. It is a reminder that the NFL has long ignored player safety over profits. Look at this headline. NFL reportedly generated record-setting $11 billion in national revenues last year. This money is their God. It is. And they don't care about these players. These players are just widgets. One goes out, we'll just replace them with another. On something that was so stark and so chilling that happened on Monday, you would think that they would get a clue, but they don't have a clue. Because when this is the way that you operate, this is your MO. You don't just change that overnight. Furthermore, more than 320 former players, including Ken Stabler and Frank Guilford, who have been posthumously diagnosed with CTE. Researchers at Boston University announced in 2019, in a study from 2019 that tackles football players double their risk of developing the worst forms of CTE for each 5.3 years that they play. And you might remember Dr. Bennett Omalu, whose autopsy of former NFL player Mike Webster led to an exposing of the NFL's awful, and I mean awful, handling of concussions and CTE. Let's put this up. When Bennett Omalu discovered evidence of a serious degenerative neurological condition affecting retired American football players, he believed the NFL would welcome his findings and work with him to better protect their stars from this terrible disease. The reality was very different, as he was dismissed, insulted, and ignored by an organization that is not well known for its love of constructive criticism. And you know what? That was more than constructive criticism. What the doctor was saying, he was sounding the alarm. And here is a direct quote from the doctor. I meet with retired football players. Some are well-dressed, some are well-spoken, but when you talk to them personally, they will admit to you that they are having problems, but they are managing their problems. They have impaired memory. They're having mood problems. I mean, these are some life-altering situations. Yasmin, I know we got to wrap up, but this is a very important story. And at some point, the American people are going to have to demand better as well. And the best way for us to do that is with our dollars in this case.
Yeah, I thought Nate Burleson had a good take on this over at the CBS Morning Show. And for those of you who don't know, he used to actually play in the NFL. And he basically said that injuries come with the territory. Every NFL player that signs a contract is aware of that risk. But the scary part is that even with the known risk of, say, concussions or broken bones or torn ligaments or whatever, there's always the knowing that whatever injury a player is sustaining, it can be worse. And what happened the other night with Damar Hamlin was the worst. I think it's easy to forget that these players are literally putting their bodies on the line for the sake of their careers, for the sake of our entertainment, and yes, for the sake of somebody else's income. It's a glamorized lifestyle, and it's an incredible accomplishment to play in the NFL. But for everyone watching these games and for everyone making money off of these players, it's easy to take that sacrifice for granted. We know they have access to the best doctors in sports medicine, which is great, but we also know that they are incentivized to get back on the field as soon as possible. And I know all of our thoughts are with Damar and his family, and we wish him a very speedy recovery.
Yeah, we do. And hopefully this situation will change the way the NFL operates. Now, Brian Flores, a now assistant coach for the Steelers, who filed a lawsuit against the league for discrimination after he was denied a head coaching opportunity because of a sham interview process, hit the nail on the head with this take. The NFL is racially segregated and is managed much like a plantation. Its 32 owners, none of whom are Black, profit substantially from the labor of NL players, 70% of whom are Black. The owners watch the games from atop NFL stadiums in their luxury boxes while their majority Black workforce put their bodies on the line every Sunday, taking vicious hits and suffering debilitating injuries to their bodies and their brains while the NFL and its owners reap billions of dollars. Thank you, Brian Flores, for not playing with me. Okay, yeah, now I'm throwing my papers, and damn it, I do need my fire extinguisher. This damn point is coming out. Let me tell you something. Okay, to have leagues like this, Brian Flores laid it out. The majority of the labor is Black. All of the ownership is white. And they really do not give one fig about what happens to these players. Because if they did, they would have done something a long time ago. They do not care at all. And yes, this is racialized. It is. Because the majority of the players in that league are Black. All of the owners are white owners. Black body out there for show on a regular basis. And yes, they do make good money, no doubt about it, but it's not worth their lives. And the NFL can do a lot to put rules in place that soften the blow literally to what happens to these players. They don't care, because guess what? They're just gonna replace them with somebody else. It is very similar, very. Not the same, but very similar. We'll just replace them with somebody else. NFL, get a clue. And to the fans, we need to get a clue too, because this type of behavior should not be acceptable at all. We all complicit in this, each and every one, no clean hands. But the NFL itself and these so-called owners, we over them. We'll be back.
We're very honest that we're progressives. We call the Young Turks home of progressives, and we support progressive candidates.
There has been this reemergence of political activism, especially among young people.
This weekend was the second Women's March, both across the US and across the world. So these people are not simply marching, they're not simply talking, they're also running for office. And when they do run, they're gonna make a difference.
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful. Why? He raised a lot of money. But there's someone finally challenging him.
We need to have representation that advocates as fiercely for working class people as possible from this seat.
If candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even get a little bit of media attention outside of what the Young Turks does, they have an excellent chance of winning. She's gonna win. She's gonna win.
68% reporting.
The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. So I don't care what you and your corporate cronies want. What I care about is what the American people want.
We believe in total change. Everything runs on donor money. And that is what we will fight. And that is exactly why they don't like us. We're having fun. It's election night.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
Here we go again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Crowley. Down goes Crowley. Down goes Manafort. Down goes Cohen. Populist left wing with a gigantic victory in Mexico.
Senator Gillibrand, you have made a pledge to no longer accept corporate PAC money.
Women came out in record numbers in the primaries. They said you'll be lucky to get one candidate. We now have 12 that have won their primaries. Bezos and Amazon announcing that they are going to go to a 15-hour minimum wage.
We're making progress. Let's keep going.
Many of these women made history.
The biggest victories, all women of color. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Sharice Davids and Deb Haaland. For a long time, we have not had progressives in power. It's going to be something to behold.
Welcome to the Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and, of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word.
Okay.
This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull.
Drink it, swallow it,
No.
spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax.
Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does.
This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening? No, that's just wrong. Every way. And we'll see you next time.
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens. I don't agree. That's not written anywhere. That's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one.
And we are back. I'm still smoldering. Yeah, I am. Let's look at Twitch, what some of our Twitch viewers have to say. Drengard Dragon, WTF neoliberal makes me facepalm for real every time. Yeah, me too. And on YouTube Super Chat, the critical one, I'm running behind, but yes, all exclamation points, all caps. And Nina, I'm a huge fan and follower of you both, all across social media, two powerhouses. Thank you so much, the critical one. We appreciate that. We appreciate that, yes, in all caps. We do. Now just for some good news. Yeah, we got some good news here. Lula, excellent environment minister. Lula, the president of Brazil, is following through on his promise to combat deforestation and protect the Amazon. How about that? A politician following through on what they said they were going to do. Lula is filling out his cabinet with officials who will take up his call to action on defending Mother Nature. Brazil's president-elect Lula announced Thursday, yes he did, that Amazon activist Marina Silva will be the country's next Minister of Environment. The announcement indicates the new administration will prioritize cracking down on illegal deforestation, even if it means running afoul of powerful agribusiness interests. You better go ahead on, President-elect. And here is some more background on Silva, who served in the same role from 2003 to 2010 in Lula's first term. As environment minister, she oversaw the creation of dozens of conservation areas and a sophisticated strategy against deforestation, with major operations against environmental criminals and new satellite surveillance. She also helped design the largest international effort to preserve rainforests, the mostly Norway-backed Amazon Fund. Deforestation dropped dramatically. But Silva wasn't the only progressive cabinet member that Lula assigned a leadership role. Let's look at who else he assigned. Lula also named Sonia, and Sonia, I'm not gonna mess up your last name, baby, an indigenous woman as Brazil's first minister of indigenous peoples, and Carlos Favaro, a soybean producer, as agriculture minister. President-elect, you better do that. Conversely, Lula committed to prosecuting all crimes in the forest, from illegal logging to mining. He also said he would press rich countries to make good on promises to help developing nations adapt to climate change. That report is coming from the Associated Press. I like to call it climate chaos. But Yasmin, this is such good news.
Yeah, I love this story. You know, how often do we actually get a good story? How often do we see politicians following through on their promises, at least as best as they can? And how often do we see actual meritocracy at work. It's amazing. We all know that the Amazon is suffering, and it is heartbreaking. I cried when they cut down the trees behind my house. So seeing what's been going on with the Amazon has been especially difficult to watch. The Amazon is dying. It's unfathomable, but thankfully we have someone in charge down there now who actually cares about the environment, is actually forward thinking, and is actually cognizant of the fact that the state of the Amazon has repercussions on the climate around the entire planet. This feels like a small but very critical win in a fight against fossil fuel companies, and it has felt so futile at times. This is a big deal. People have existential anxiety over the state of our planet. Most of us want to live in a beautiful, clean, and thriving place. We want other people to have the same experience, but a handful of greedy politicians and CEOs are ruining it for everyone, not to mention our plant life and our wildlife. I will gladly take this win, and I hope for many more similar wins in the future. I wish them the best because they have a lot of work ahead of them.
Yeah, they do. And to see a president-elect saying that he's also going to tap into other of his colleagues around the world shows he understands the use of power and how important it is to deal with climate chaos. And it is important to know that the importance of rainforests, and Yasmin did some of that, protecting them. Rainforests help too. Let's put this up so you can see it. Stabilize the world's climate, provide homes to many plant and animals, maintain the water cycle, protect against flood, drought, and erosion, source for medicine and food, and support tribal people. Hello, somebody on that. Good on you, President-elect Lula. Good on you. Well, as we have talked today about this show, we started off this show talking about the fourth estate. So I thought it important to pull in someone who truly understands that fourth estate, Joseph Pulitzer. And he was an editor and a publisher, and he did help to establish the pattern of modern newspapers. In his time, he was one of the most powerful journalists in the United States. And he thought about these big ideas and about what the role of the media actually is, or what it should be. And he once said the following: a journalist is the lookout on the bridge of the ship of state. He notes the passing sails, the little things of interest that dot the horizon in fine weather. He reports the drifting castaway whom the ship can save. He peers through the fog and the storm to give warning of dangers ahead. He is not thinking of his wages or of the profits of his owners. He is there to watch over the safety and welfare of the people who trust him. We would be wise to take in Joseph Pulitzer's words about the role of journalism. He, she, us, all of us, especially those who work in this field, need to heed his words. Yeah, need to do that. Well, that is our time for today. It has been so exciting to be with all of you. So glad to have Yasmin on deck as the co-host today. Appreciate you so much. I look forward to when you're going to be back on Unbossed. And really what I want folks to do right now, you know what I want you to do is the same thing I asked you to do last year. I do want you to keep the faith, but more importantly, I want you to keep the fight. Until next time.